Right away, questions in the room here. So anyone have questions for Coach Bellotti?
What's the mood of the team going into the UCLA game?
The mood of the team is awesome. They're obviously very dedicated to the remainder of this season. Excited about the opportunity. Certainly it's tough to go on with the injuries, but I think in spite of that, our team is actually very motivated. I think from the standpoint that they want to finish this thing, it's nice to be in a BCS race. It's nice to have the Rose Bowl still as a tangible thing that you can grasp. It is within our grasp. Obviously, we need some help. We need to win, but that's always been the case. So I think overall, best thing is to talk to them, but my interaction with them in practice yesterday was very, very good.
Ultimately, though, your perception is that the injuries had him a little more shook up than a defeat?
No, not at all. I think injury is part of the game of football. We talked about that, and we overcome those things. The defeat was difficult, the reality of where we're at. The nice thing, as I said, is it's not that far a bounce from the national championship to the Rose Bowl. That's sort of a neat thing to still be in that position, have a chance at that. And so life is about altering your plans a little bit and being somewhat flexible in your approach.
Is the mood about the same as after the Cal game?
It's a good question. Yeah, probably similar. I think there's frustration. I think that we recognize that we had chances to win that game, that we played well at times in some areas of the game and did not in others, and that it was a little bit of a lack of focus at one point. It was a lack of execution. Our defense played an extremely good football game, and certainly a very motivated game from about the end of the second quarter on. Offensively, we ran more plays in that game than we've run in any game this year. We had 463 yards. What we did not do is translate those yards to points. And we had to settle for field goals instead of touchdowns a couple times in situations that could have made a significant change in the game. We also had a couple of breaks or bounces of the ball that went against us, reviews that took away a turnover. And we had a couple other issues with officiating I'm still waiting to hear on. But overall, that's no excuse. I think our frustration is that we could have won the game and are probably a little bit more, not angry, but focused in terms of what we need to do now.
I guess the 3 times you didn't kick field goals in the red zone, anything going back that was a common denominator in terms of not executing to turn those into touchdowns instead of field goals?
Well, one was protection. We had one red zone situation where we got a sack that didn't even allow us to kick a field goal. Obviously, and that would have made it less than a touchdown game. It was inability to execute, just flat out across the board.
Brady's got a lot of experience, obviously. How long would you normally take or expect a pure second stringer to take to get in sync with his receivers and get in the game rhythm?
You know, week to 2 weeks, just depends. You know, Brady had the benefit. He was the quarterback this summer that threw to the receivers the entire summer while Dennis was not here. So Brady is not your average everyday second-team quarterback. He started several games several games last year. He played in games 2 years ago and helped us win in this conference. So there's a very positive, quiet sense of confidence in Brady, what he can do as a leader, this team in him, and I think that, again, I think he's already there. I think he was more hampered by the physical ailment of his ankle, which occurred on the first series of the second half, which was very frustrating because, again, it was a poor job of protection as opposed to anything to do with Brady's play.
Rich, we're going to go to the phones. If there are any questions awaiting Coach Bellotti there.
At this time, if you would like to pose a question, press star, then number 1 on your telephone keypad. Your first question comes from Steve Summers of eastducks.com.
Mike, what particular problems does UCLA present?
UCLA is one of the most athletic teams in the conference. In fact, probably second only to USC in terms of their athleticism. Defensively, they have probably the best group, or one of the best groups, of cover people, secondary, and the most athletic front. Bruce Davis is extremely difficult coming off the edge. He presents problems to you. I think Chris Horton is one of the best defensive football players, not just in this conference, but in the nation. And then they've got Trey Brown and Altron Werner and Rodney Van and Dennis Keys in their secondary, which allows them to do a lot of things coverage-wise. They will play man coverage. We fully anticipate we may see more man from them in this game than any game we've seen yet. And obviously that opens up certain opportunities. It also is going to come down to being able to get rid of the football and move the football versus pressure. Offensively, really, Osar Rashan, evidently the starting quarterback, has great mobility. He was a receiver at one time this year. He can move. He's got another couple weeks of practice now under his belt. They run the ball very well. They're a very balanced, experienced team. They focus primarily on run and play action, and they've done a nice job. They've had some injuries at quarterback and at tailback, and obviously they've been sort of a Jekyll and Hyde team this year, and it's hard to say who'll show up. But obviously, just as we talked about last week, they have a lot at stake in this thing. They can compete for the conference championship. They can compete for a bowl game, for the best bowl game. So there's a tremendous amount riding on this game, and I would anticipate their best football game.
Thank you. Your next question comes